not by thinking, but by training, by exercise, not by means of thought and thinking and analysis and conceptualization, that one realizes anatta in experience. I would go so far as to say that it's nearly not necessary to think about it at all, so long you know how to practice that, so long you know how to dissociate yourself, or the awareness or self-consciousness from the emotional state. It's not necessary to think about anatta at all, or to conceptualize on it. Only by means of training, and repeated and sustained training, that you finally see anatta in experience, that you have absolutely no question about what it is. And this is a question that I've been asked several times, because of course the remarkable and unique psychological condition of anatta is very central to Buddhist practice, and people understand it, and they say, well, how could you do that? How could you possibly feel something and not feel it, or be under the influence of an emotional state, yet you're not moved by it? How is that even possible? It is possible, and that's what's so remarkable about Buddhist practice, and I think ancient Indian psychology in general. The ingenious discovery, probably through the various forms of yoga as exercise, meditative exercises, whether it's meditation or yoga or something else, the experiential realization that it is possible to separate the awareness from the emotional state while the emotional state is happening. This is a very basic aspect of Buddhist practice and spiritual practice, and Indian spiritual practice in general. This calm and composure, and it's not really coming from suppression or self-restraint or anything of that sort. This is a very big misunderstanding, and it's caused a lot of problems in the experience of many practitioners. It's not by controlling your emotions, it's just by separating the awareness from the emotional state. Of course, the immediate result of this is that emotions begin to diminish, dwindle into nothingness, very, very naturally, all by themselves. And so, the first thing that happens for most people is that they sit down and start thinking about all this, and that's fine. You could think, but just enough thinking. What you need to do is to practice this, to try to see how does it work in experience, and that requires a degree or another of meditation exercise. This is why meditation is so important. It allows you to reach that state in experience, and not just reach it and then abide in it, and it becomes your nature. You reach a point where the norm for you is to not identify with the emotional states. It becomes your nature, or let's say a transcendental nature. It's something that opposes evolutionary and unconscious functions. As the evolutionary foundations of any living creature is precisely to identify with its cognitive, sensorial, and emotional experience. That's how survival happens. You see, if you take a deer, for example, it encounters a lion, and then the deer say, well, I'm not going to identify with my fear. Well, there would be no survival for that deer. So it's very fundamental to evolution and to survival is this self-identification with the emotional state, with the cognitive evaluation of the variables of environment. This is so profound, but it is possible to change this in our human case, and it's essential to Buddhist practice. and this was one of the things that I remember fascinated me a lot at the beginning of the journey. The question for me wasn't whether this is difficult or easy. The question for me whether this is at all possible. Is it possible to not identify with one's emotional states, with one's cognitive evaluations that are motivated by automatic evolutionary functions. What is to be pursued, what is to be feared, what is to be avoided. So these are pre-wired things. These are encoded in our genetic makeup, all of us. So is it at all possible to stop things of that sort? That was the question for me, and then meditation will show you that it is possible. That's why it is so important to meditate, because automatically you begin to see that you're calmer, and you start asking questions with how this thing used to make me angry, that used to make me feel afraid, and the emotions still arise because you can't do anything to stop them. Just to put that out there. It's not possible to change one's emotional responses willfully. Impossible. If that was possible, then everybody would be a saint by now. So the emotional states continue to arise, but the difference is that the awareness doesn't run along with them. You maintain that self-awareness, that is calm, that is not moved, imperturbed by these emotional states. And that is something that meditation allows for. And then you keep practicing, and then you realize what is anatta, what really is this kind of pseudo-schizophrenic dissociation with one's own emotions, cognitive evaluations, ideas, ideations, streams of thought. All that begins to appear to the practitioner as things that are external. Sankare parato passa, dukkhato macha atato. This is a verse by the Venerable Anatta, where he gives this advice. It is to see sankhara, to see all these mental functions, that are conditioned as they are, to see them as parata. This parata, this expression means other, not me, outside, external. Sankare parata passa, dukkhato macha atato. It is not who I am. It is something that is afflictive. It is something that is painful. It's not who I am. So this eventually happens. You see it in experience. It's not something that you will ever grasp by thinking about it. You have to start practicing. There is no other way to really realize this reality of anatta in psychological terms without practice.